The purpose of this module was to address a performance issue occurring in the audio labs within all 6 campuses at Georgia State University. The course is designed to submerge the learner in an environment that resembles what they will encounter in the real world. I thought it was important to mimic what they would actually experience in the lab. Also, students must complete the module and the subsequent test inside the lab so they can compare the information from the module directly to the environment and area of desired improvement. It begins by telling the learner to turn on the gear because this was often an issue experienced by students. Many times, one piece of gear was not turned on, giving the impression that the lab was malfunctioning. This section forces the learner to interact with the equipment before advancing and gives information that will be on the quiz. Students are not able to advance until all the gear is turned on, reinforcing the idea that the facility will not operate as desired until all the equipment is turned on. This slide introduces the learner to an essential concept in the use of hardware and software to interact with audio. Signal flow is how we troubleshoot and understand the movement of audio between devices. There is a set path that sound will travel through equipment. If it cannot be heard through the headphones or speakers, there is something blocking the flow of the signal. Students are able to listen to and record audio in the studio, so instructional content was created to show how to do both. However, setting up the output signal chain first is fundamental because input is determined by proper output settings. Here, the learner is again forced to turn on all the gear first. Behavioral learning theory informs us that repetition and reinforcement are effective in learning new knowledge and forming new habits. Learners are guided through the steps in proper order that is required to get audio from the computer to the speakers. A key thing to mention, if this sequence is not followed, the pieces of equipment will not recognize each other and will not sync properly. Students interact with a simulated recording program just as they would in the real software. They are guided through this mandatory setup, being that the computer is the brain of the facility and beginning of signal flow. Here is a screenshot of the actual menu they must learn to interface with. Students are told what to click but not shown exactly where it is, encouraging the student to explore, read, and become familiar with this essential menu layout. The very first step was to turn on all the equipment. Now that we've synced the computer to the ensemble, we can check to see if the audio is flowing properly by playing an audio file. While the file is playing, students should check to see if the signal is reaching the ensemble. A video of the actual ensemble will play, and students will be able to look at the real ensemble in the facility to see what should be happening. Signal flow is the key concept, and the next checkpoint in our signal chain is the Mackie. Despite all of the knobs and buttons on the Mackie, there are only 3 buttons that students need to be concerned with. A video of the actual Mackie, which is in front of the student, will play, showing them what they should see if they have set up the equipment properly. While the file is playing, students should slowly turn up the volume button on the Mackie. If they have followed the steps correctly, they should hear sound from the speakers. Students must review the output signal flow section of the module before advancing. The input section of the module progresses just as the output section did. Students are guided through each step that is required in order to get a signal into the recording software. While the mic stand is already in the audio lab, the mic is not, so a video shows the student how to mount the mic and how to plug in the XLR cable. Students are expected to recall that Logic Pro is the software that controls signal flow. They are given step-by-step instructions on how to create a track and set up input for recording. Adjusting the input is a necessary task students must learn to perform. It is essential to signal flow in the last step in proper input routing. Learners have the option of reviewing each section as many times as they want before taking the quiz.